Well, Bob, thanks for joining us. 5 decades as a promoter, put together a lot of super fights. Where does this fight rank in terms of the complexity of putting a big fight together?
Well, Chris, it should be easy. It should have been easy. Two great fighters, a promotion that was on fire. Instead, it's been a terrible experience fighting off people on the other side who took positions that made absolutely no sense economically or any other way. I mean, one that's easy to explain, for example, is Todd DeBuff, the president of Top Rank, wanted to do what we do in our fights, a big light show, and to make it something special, because this is a special fight. So the people at Showtime, Steve Espinoza, said no, because he didn't think it was worthwhile spending the money. Now, I can't argue with that. He has a job there, that's his position. So Todd went to Richard Plepler, the chairman of HBO, who said, no, we need a spectacular in-arena experience. And Todd and Richard agreed to split the cost between us so that Mayweather, Showtime wouldn't have to bear any cost. So we went back to Espinoza and said, hey, great news. You said you wouldn't pay for it, but we got it paid. It will cost you nothing. And you know what they were told? No, you're not going to do it.
What do you attribute that to?
What I attribute it to is Heyman's making all the decisions for Showtime. He runs Showtime. That Heyman has this PBC, and he's doing different presentations with that, none of which are really any good. And he doesn't want this presentation for this major fight to show up what he's doing, as petty as that. Because otherwise, Chris, if I said to you, you've rented a Chevy Suburban, but I want you, when you're in Las Vegas, to drive a Mercedes-Benz Maybach, right? And it will cost you no more than the Chevy Suburban. Hey, you would say, of course, but that wasn't what we got from them, so we had to drop it. And so the in-arena experience will be very disappointing, because it won't be the pizzazz that should accompany a big fight like this.
You tried to make this fight in 2009. It didn't work. You tried to make it through an intermediary in 2010. It didn't work. Over the last 4 years, what have your thoughts been about if this fight would ever happen?
Well, in one part of me I was optimistic that it would be made, because it was stupid not to make it. There was so much money involved. I knew that Manny wanted the fight very, very much. But always on the other side was the man behind the curtain blocking it. I mean, it's as simple as that. I attribute it all to him. I don't believe anymore that it was Mayweather who was afraid to fight Pacquiao. I just think the man behind the curtain didn't want the fight to happen. The time that when Mayweather was fighting for HBO, as was Pacquiao, when Ross Greenberg tried to make that fight, and we negotiated through Ross Greenberg, and after we made a deal and were ready to sign, suddenly they said that no negotiations had taken place. I mean, is that a Kafkaesque situation?
A lot of people have tried to take credit for why this fight happened. Pacquiao's willingness to take less money, the meeting between Pacquiao and Mayweather in Miami. In your mind, why did negotiations work this time?
Floyd Mayweather is a megalomaniac. Anything he says, what he believes in, he's a megalomaniac. To understand Floyd Mayweather, you have to read Eugene O'Neill's play Emperor Jones. But that being said, even Mayweather cannot long avoid the vociferous opinion of fans. And as you know, Mayweather likes to go to basketball games. And every time they showed his picture on the screen, people would start booing. One night at Staples Center at a Clipper game, the fans, everybody there started chanting, "Fight Pacquiao, fight Pacquiao." Well, even Floyd, with his megalomania, can't long avoid that. If people are saying in the clubs that he goes to or wherever, "Why don't you fight Pacquiao?" eventually he's got to give in.
The advent of social media has created a buzz around this fight like no other. It's expected to eclipse 3 million pay-per-view buys. It's expected to shatter the pay-per-view revenue record. But there are still people out there that say this fight should have happened 5 years ago, and it's diminished as a result. To those people, what would you say?
I would say to those people that maybe the fight would have been better 5 years ago. The guys were more in their prime. It's hard to argue that point. However, the fight didn't happen 5 years ago. It's happening now. And certainly with this crazy buildup over 5 years, it's enhanced the economic value of the fight.
You've been in Pacquiao's gym a lot leading up to this fight. What have you seen from him?
I see in Pacquiao a very confident fighter, a fighter who is now taking more seriously the instructions from Freddie. In other words, I've seen them spend long time on the mitts, plotting attacks that I didn't see before. I saw a little of it before, but not as much as this time. So they've worked very, very hard and looked at film. I never saw Manny look at film before, and I never saw Manny as confident as he is going into this fight as for any other fight. I mean, he is smiling and pleasant. He's always pleasant, but really pleasant. And he's willing to do any publicity that we ask him to do. And it's a confident fighter. I mean, I'm blown away by the there's not even an iota of doubt.
As a promoter, you're in the audience-pleasing business. Why do you think this fight's going to be aesthetically pleasing?
As a promoter, I've learned that it's hard to predict whether a fight will be aesthetically pleasing because the styles of the fighters, the strategy. This fight, I believe, will be aesthetically pleasing for this reason. I believe that Floyd Mayweather has lost a lot in his legs. I don't think he can move the way he used to. I also know that Mayweather was a great, great student of boxing and is a great defensive technician. His style is geared for an orthodox fighter. I can't tell you, Chris, the number of discussions I had with Mayweather, his father, about fighting southpaws. So his defense is best against a right-handed fighter. And Manny Pacquiao is really very, very fast still and throws a lot of punches from the southpaw side. I think Floyd knows all of that, and I think what Floyd is going to do is stand and fight. And I think that Floyd is not going to look to fight a defensive fight, but is going to try to, the only way Floyd can win this fight is to knock out Pacquiao. Now, people see it different. I understand, but I am telling you that based on what Floyd is saying and his preparation and what we hear from his camp, he is relying on a knockout to win the fight. If the fight goes to a decision, Pacquiao will be an overwhelming winner because he will out-punch Mayweather by wide, wide margins.
You've been part of many rematches and trilogies. If this fight turns out to be a great fight, if it breaks all records, could you envision yourself going back to the table and doing this all over again?
Well, I'm 83, and I take the example of an 83-year-old guy leaving prison after spending considerable time in prison, as this has felt, the negotiations and doing this fight. And then the question is, no matter how good the food was in prison, does he want to go back and serve another term? Oh, I don't know. I mean, and it's not only up to me, it'd be up to Manny primarily, but for me, it's like sentencing me to another term of misery.